and demonstrate enabling Oracle Cloud Metrics. Micronaut has built-in support for Micrometer for exporting metrics to the application. So you just have to add a few dependencies, one on Micrometer and one on the Oracle Cloud Micrometer module. And then all you need to do is switch over to your application.oraclecloud.yaml file and basically configure to export metrics from the application to Oracle Cloud under a particular application name, namespace, and a resource group. And it really is that simple to set up. And now what we can do is we can run this application and wait for it to start up. And connect up to Oracle Cloud and start exporting metrics, and it'll and so forth. And what we can do is we can essentially switch over to Oracle Cloud Metrics Explorer. And maybe before we do that, put some load on my application by executing a few requests to the books endpoint. So I'm just going to hit it a few times through the Swagger API to put some load to generate some data. And then you can see, if we look in the Metrics Explorer, you'll see that we can monitor various metrics from the application, from things like those GET requests that you were seeing before. We can look at the Kafka consumer metrics, the server request averages, the state of the connection pool, and we can add additional metrics. So we can go in, for example, and Micronaut will export automatically through Micrometer a whole bunch of metric information to the application. So for example, I can scroll through all the different metrics, exported metrics, from the executor metrics to the connection pool metrics, to all sorts of metrics that are available to my application. I can get Jvm Metrics for the Java version, finding out what kind of the state of my GC allocation is, for example. And I can specify that I want to monitor this and update the chart, and it will add that query and provide those additional metrics to my application on GC, on the state of GC information, and so on and so forth. So all of that information is automatically exported into the metrics information, which can be monitored continuously. So what I'm going to do now is demonstrate enabling Oracle Cloud tracing. So what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to lean on MN feature diff to basically figure out what to configure. So I'm going to say I want tracing Zipkin, and that will tell me what I need to configure in my application. So I'm going to copy these dependencies, and I'm going to put them into my build configuration, which is I need to do to enable Zipkin reporting. And then the next thing is, if I wanted to send traces locally, I will need to this Zipkin configuration to export traces to a locally running the Zipkin instance. So this will allow me to export traces if I had Zipkin running locally on port 94111. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the probability so that all traces are sent to Zipkin instead of just a portion of them. Probably wouldn't want to do that in production, but for this demonstration, we want to make sure all the traces are sent. So the next thing to do is, after we've got the local configuration done, is to get the Oracle Cloud configuration in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in the Oracle Cloud version, which I just have to set the HTTP URL path to my Oracle Cloud tracing endpoint and the path. And now we can go to my application and we can run it locally. And what we can do now is switch over to a browser and switch over to our Swagger UI and maybe just place some load on the application. So I'm gonna hit the execute button a few times to place some load on the application and execute the books URI several times and get some load going. Maybe I'll hit the title endpoint as well just so we can see like different traces and information coming through. So there's the title endpoint, and what I can do now is go to the Trace Explorer, run a query for recent traces to see information. It might take a few seconds to catch up. Oh, there we go. So the traces are appearing, and we have all the trace information going into Oracle Trace Explorer. We can click in and dive down into that information to find out more about that particular trace, such as timings and any kind of trace data that gets attached to it. And yeah, you can see the duration, information about the span, and so on and so forth. So this endpoint is actually not calling another endpoint, so it's just like first level tracing. But you can see information about the tracing there, which is really useful. So yeah, this is really cool stuff and really useful to be able to export tracing metrics directly to Oracle Cloud out of the box with Micronaut.